Devil Survivor's a masterpiece. I've never played that game. I've never played. Isn't this just SMT as far as I'm aware? Just a different name by Nyarly? Nyarly? I have no idea. My bad if I mispronounced that. Never played it, so we're gonna look at what this is. Maybe something interesting I do take interest in playing. We'll see. The only thing that I remember that I played in an SMT game that was a gacha game, I think that one is actually still running, which does surprise me. However, I'm not sure. Maybe they're still running, maybe it's not. Last time I checked, it was still running. But yeah, never got really into it. We're gonna look at this.
I will never forget the story of how I got into Megami Tensei. It was during the summer of 2012 when I was at the peak of my weeaboo phase in high school. One day I was browsing
the peak of my weeaboo phase. I never had a peak for that, right? I didn't really share that I watched anything anime related at all, or anything Japan related. I never did that. I just played a lot of JRPGs though as a kiddo. That was interesting. Yeah. Regardless. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. We'll continue.
The PlayStation Store on my PS3 when I saw an advertisement come up for the recently added title called Persona 3 FES. Now,
I also have not played any Persona games yet. I will eventually play one, but I haven't played one yet. I believe Devil Survivor is an SMT spin-off. Ah, okay.
Now, the only time I had heard of Persona prior to this was the year before when I watched two best friends play Persona 4 on Machinima.
Yeah, it's Battlefield! Battlefield 3!
Battlefield 3 out this week!
Modern War Battles 5!
I can't wait to play the multiplayer!
At the time, I thought it looked cool, but
I do know a lot of memes, though, because for some odd reason, you can hack max the teacher as a student, which is very interesting. Supposedly. I don't know if that's true, but apparently that's a thing. And I would probably do that. As well. I would go. And apparently there's harem routes for the romancing part. Apparently there's harem routes. Supposedly. I'm not too deep into knowledge, aside from like interesting side facts and just memes. However, the music is amazing in these games. I have to say that. What I can say about these games that is great is that music is great. And apparently the Persona 5 is takes ages to finish.
It was only on PS2 and the PS3 I had wasn't backwards compatible, so I kind of just forgot about it and went back to playing Call of Duty Black Ops. From what I remembered, it was a series that combined two of my
I had a backwards compatible PlayStation 3. I remember that. I had the original fat one, right? The one that was really heavy and really big, had the PlayStation logo and like silvery text all over it, and just like a huge fucking chunker. I had that one.
My favorite things at the time, JRPGs and Japanese visual novels. So I immediately bought it, I played it, and I was more than hooked. Not only for
Never got into visual novels. How dare you not play Persona? My bad, I'm sorry, cringe. My bad. I'm sorry. I never had the chance to. That's the problem. And I don't really buy that many games, especially games that I just play one time and that's it, right? Because I need to, as a broke person, I know you can't comprehend, but as a broke person, I need to keep an eye on what I buy and what I get the most value out. I'm a smart player.
For its story, art style, and dating sim elements, but also for the way it drew inspiration from mythologies throughout history. There were so many monsters to collect and battle with, all of which were based on ancient mythological gods and demons. Persona 3 was just as much of a history lesson as it was a video game. Shortly after that, I discovered the Megaton Wiki, through which I found out that Persona was only a small part of a much longer-running franchise called Megami Tensei. In addition to the Persona series, there was the mainline series, the Digital Devil Saga series, the Devil Summoner series, and many more, which all sounded really interesting, but unfortunately...
Didn't they just recently, I'm not sure, drop another... Was it a remake or a spin-off? I'm not too sure. But I thought they dropped something. It had a completely different name, but I think it was either a remake or a spin-off some of these previous mentioned. I'm not sure though.
Fortunately, most of these were on the PS2, which I still didn't have at the time, so I couldn't play most of them. But there was one that caught my attention. An entry for the Nintendo DS called Devil Survivor. Megami Ibanroku Devil Survivor, also known as Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor in English, is a turn-based strategy RPG that was released for the Nintendo DS in 2009, and then an updated version, Devil Survivor Overclocked, was released in 2011 for the Nintendo 3DS.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I would be able to play that actually. Interestingly enough, for once, because I can emulate that. Interesting.
Which added better visuals, new story content, and voice acting. Once I heard about it, I checked to see if I could
Oh god, voice acting on the DS. Oh, was it the 3DS version? 3DS version. Never mind.
buy a copy anywhere nearby, and conveniently enough, a GameStop within walking distance from my house happened to have it. So I went over there, I bought it, and once I got home and started playing...
What did he say? What did he say?
GameStop within walking distance from my house happened to have it. So I went...
The shopping experience was anything but convenient, though some kid in front of me couldn't make up his mind about his Xbox, so I stood in line for like an hour, only to find out they didn't have the cartridge. Almost had to sneeze, help. So when I came back to complain, they found it on the floor behind the counter. Funny.
Went over there, I bought it, and once I got home and started playing, yet again, I was hooked. In fact, I was so hooked that I actually went out of my way to finish it before I finished Persona 3. That's right, this was my first Megaten game, but this was the first one that I completed. Devil Survivor was not only the game that cemented me into Megami Tensei as a die-hard
The girl is already cute. I'm already sold.
fan, but it really showed me just how a video game can be so immersive, so relatable, and so much fun at the same time.
Hold up.
But it really showed me just how a video game can be so immersive, so relatable, and so much...
Do I need to say anything? Do I need to say anything? Do I actually have to say anything? They're all extensively long. There's Persona 3 Reload, which is a remake. They're working on Persona 4 Revival, but Persona 4 Golden is the current definitive Persona 4 edition. I also know that some of the remakes have a little bit of censorship in there, and apparently they also said that for future Persona games they want to get a wider audience. I don't know if they mean fat women with that, but regardless. Which usually means that they're going down a route that all modern devs go, which is they're going to completely lose their identity and sell out the people that actually bought their games. But yeah, in the official statement, they said they wanted to reach a wider audience. I am scared for this franchise, and I haven't even played it.
much fun at the same time. With Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Nocturne Remastered being scheduled to release soon, the franchise is bringing in more fans than ever, and while I'm seeing a lot of people talk about their favorite games, usually those being Nocturne or 4, I don't actually see people talk about Devil Survivor that much. Devil Survivor will always hold a special place in my heart, and I made this video because I want to express to you all just what makes this game such a masterpiece, and why, in my opinion, it's the best Megaten game.
Anyways, do not search SMT Mara. Mara Sinship is giving it a hat. I'm sorry. Now I gotta Google it. What are you on about? Now I gotta Google it. What are you on about? What the fuck? That is a penis. That is a penis. Now it's a penis with a hat, but that is a penis. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you come across this video that I'm watching right now, like, if you see my reaction, please Google SMT Mara. That is just the penis, straight up. That is just the dong. That is just a schlong. That's a dong in a wheelchair.
Development of Devil Survivor began shortly after Atlas had acquired Careersoft, who were previously known for the Langrisser and Growlancer series.
Look at Langrazor. Fun fact, I'd never played the Langrazor game. I did play the gacha though, very intensively. I'm thinking about going back, because the baddies are just bad. That's crazy.
With this going to be Careersoft's first Megaton game, they were pretty much on their own for the development of this game, because most of Atlas's veteran developers were busy with other projects like Strange Journey and Catherine. Needless to say, these new developers had extremely high expectations.
I heard interesting things about Catherine. That's all.
To live up to. Now, these people easily could have just taken the gameplay of Mainline, slapped a new setting or something on it, and then called it a day. But they instead decided to do something unique. They decided to make it a strategy RPG, which is something the franchise hadn't attempted since Rond on the Sega Saturn. This seemed like kind of an odd...
So you're essentially saying they just said, you know, fuck it, we ball. How about Fire Emblem? That is essentially what this looks like. Fuck it, we ball.
Decision at the time, but these developers had the perfect idea of how to bring Megaton back into the strategy RPG genre. Good map design? Check. Mission variety? Check. Loads of customization? Check, check, and check. It plays like what you'd expect from an SRPG, where your characters move around the map, engage in combat, etc., etc. However, each combatant is actually a team of 3 members, the one in the middle, who functions as the leader and controls the movement on the map, and 2 allies on the left and right side. For you, this means you have your human party member, who is always the leader, and your demons on the side. When you engage enemies on the map, it goes into this combat system that's kind of like a miniaturized version of the press turn combat seen in...
It's basically kind of, once again, there's like, well, you can't see your characters. You can't see their portrait, right? But that's about it, right? You see like the enemy. It's like kind of, again, you know, the usual what you're like used to from like Dragon Quest, OG Dragon Quest, and some other strategy RPGs as well, and some other turn-based games. Yeah.
Mainline. You're rewarded for exploiting the enemy's weaknesses and landing critical hits, and doing so may give you an extra turn, but your party members can only get 1 per skirmish. There are also other ways to get extra turns as well, like having an enemy hit your own resistance, and you might actually start the battle with one depending on your agility stat and who has the initiative in combat. However, you can also just as easily lose them, so be careful. Now, getting back to my point about the customization, with all the different demons, skills, and strategies you can take, there is a lot of thinking involved with this game. It is one of the most in-depth and customizable strategy RPGs I've ever played, and it's some of the most fun you can have with the genre. For one thing, you can fully customize your protagonist's stats and every character's skill set. You have a total of 7 skills.
That's kind of cool, being able to essentially... Oh, look at that. Team 1, the protagonist is Locke. He can never be removed. But that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, I guess. Yeah. And then you can just like have the character the way you want it, and obviously customize skill sets. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty cool.
Slots for each character. 3 for command skills, 3 for passive skills, and 1 auto skill, which are exclusive to humans and always activate at the beginning of battle. The same is true with your demons, but instead of auto skills, they have what are called race skills. These are skills that every demon of a certain race always has, and they can actually make or break a team. Want to be able to hit the enemies from further away while sacrificing your extra turns? Use a dragon or a vial. Want to be able to move through obstacles on the map? Try putting a Genma or an Avion in your party. Want to be able to move around the map really fast? Try using a Wilder. You can also combine these with your own skills and other race skills to make for some effective and even debatably overpowered combinations.
So you can become the ultimate racist. Anyways.
For example, if you run a Kishin with a beast, you can attack, move to another enemy, attack again, and then move away again. Or if you run a deity while having Blitzkrieg as your auto skill, your party will have...
Blitzkrieg, huh? This game has the Polish people shivering.
Have an almost double increase in magic damage, and if you combine it with both the elemental boosters, that increase will go up to more than triple. But it's not all easy. You can't just pass the best skills onto every character. For human characters, skills have stat requirements, so don't think you can just go dumping all of your stats into magic teach them the best offensive skills, and then steamroll your way through the game. You have to meet the minimum requirements before you can set the skills onto your character. And for demons, you can't get rid of their innate skills when fusing them. Other than that, there's really not much to say. It's got
Interesting. So, can you go overpowered or not? That's the important question here.
pretty much everything you would expect from a Megaten game, like the monster.
That's already on the way to the cock. I did not read this as Dirahan. I can tell you this much. I did not read it as that. You know what I read, bro. I read diarrhea. Crazy name. Bro, that one was got me.
Expect from a Megaten game, like the monsters, the moves, the fusion. And even though it is different in many ways, most of the iconic elements from Megaten are still here in some way or another, and it's all done very intuitively. I mean, heck, it even borrows some elements from Persona, like time management. Yeah, you only have a limited amount of time to do stuff. You use your free time to do things like getting to know characters better and learning about the lore of the game, which can also open up some.
Does it still have the dating sim part? Right? A no DS game spin-off. We need to cut stuff down, right? Also, do the fights have a time limit? That would scare me, right? I already hate that in Falspawn Kingdom. There's time limits. Really frustrating.
Side quest. But I put free in quotes because if you make poor use of your time, it could lead to the death of a character or getting locked out of one of the endings that you want. You know, despite being basically a visual novel outside of combat, there really is a lot going on and a lot to do. Characters have different interactions depending on your previous choices, and every time I go back to this game, I always find myself learning something that I didn't know before. It really makes this world feel alive, even if you can't actually explore it for yourself. But with Devil Survivor, Careersoft not only proved that they were capable of making a Megaten game that was on par with the others, they proved that they were actually better than the other developers in many ways. For one thing, Devil Survivor was the first game in the franchise that included the fusion search function, where rather than selecting random demons from your list.
Okay, so let me get this straight. I'm assuming that, right? Unique probably means that you can't use them for fusion, right? Like it's a one-time thing, I'm assuming. So you can essentially just capture monsters? How does that work? Or demons, or whatever you want to call them. And then you just can fuse them together and get a different one. Is that what it is? I think that's what it is, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what it appears to be the case.
And hoping to get a result you want, it just shows you what demons are available and what you'll need to fuse them. You can also hand-pick the skills you want to transfer via fusion rather than constantly re-rolling just to get the skills that you want. And then there's things that still aren't commonplace in the franchise, like the Devil Auction, where you can just buy demons instead of recruiting them, and also...
That's kind of cool. That's kind of very cool. Demon... demon trafficking.
So the ability to have more than one of the same demon. Want to beat the game with a team of nothing but pixies? Knock yourself out. Oh, and get this. You can actually save in the middle of battle. That's right. Are you in the...
Ooh, that's cool. I really hate that when you can't do that in many strategy RPGs, right? Even some modern ones don't have that, where you can just like save in the middle of like getting your ass beat, right? I hate that I have to, right? Because the missions take really long for Falspawn Kingdom, that I have to essentially put a save state up, because otherwise I would be sitting here much longer, right? Some of those missions take like literally an hour. It's crazy.
Middle of an intense battle, but your DS is about to die and you left your charger at home? No problem. Just suspend your game and pick it up later. If you want, you can even use this as an extra save slot, pretty much. Devil Survivor really does spoil its players with all these features and gameplay elements. And that's the best way to describe Devil Survivor. It's got a great SRPG flavor with all that modern Megaten goodness on top of it, sprinkled with quality of life features. And considering that this game still holds up incredibly well despite being over a decade old, that's really saying a lot. But that's enough about the gameplay. Let's move on to the presentation. Now, Devil Survivor may not be the most graphically impressive game on the DS and is even...
We love you. You're pissing me off, funny. Interesting. Okay. This might actually be a game I might actually play. This might actually... Because it's like an easily accessible game, right? I just need to emulate it. That's fine. Right? This would be a way to do this. Most certainly. Interesting. This could be a game I could be getting into it. Right? It has the monster taming aspect. And then a little bit of, like, Fire Emblem flair. I don't see any issue.
Less so with Overclocked on the 3DS. But it more than makes up for this in the other departments. Like with the music, for example. As many of you know, pretty much every Megaten game has its own unique theme for its soundtrack. For example, you have Persona 3, which was rap, Strange Journey, which was orchestra, and then Devil Survivor, which is hard rock. While Devil Survivor may not have the most variety with its soundtracks, in fact, not including the 2 new soundtracks that were added in Overclocked, there are only 26 different soundtracks in the entire game. But
the music makes me even more interested. Because I like rock and metal and all that stuff. Let's go.
They're all so good and they fit with the game so well, I'm okay with that. Seriously, just listen to this battle theme and tell me you don't want to go beat the crap out of some demons.
That is good soundtrack. By the way, for the DS. Really interesting for the DS.
Then you have the intimidating boss music.
Right? Because remember, the DS's sound capabilities weren't that great. I think Pokemon Black and White 2 really pushed with the intro, right? With the title screen theme. Really pushed the DS to its limits. But this might be as well up there. Interesting. Yep, the soundtrack is good. Can't complain. Yep. I might actually play this specifically because of the soundtrack. My main experience with SMT has been with SMT 3 Nocturne, SMT 5, and the Persona series, and each capture mechanic varies from game to game. SMT 5 brought the P games back to traditional SMT, where you have to convince the demons to join you, instead of card shuffle from Persona 3 and Persona 4. Ah, okay, interesting. We examined seconds of track for education value. Please do not strike us. Well, it's from a game, so that usually doesn't happen, right? If it's from, like, okay, it may depend. It may depend. Like, if you, like, have, like, the openings of, like, some Tales games or some other anime games, you might get quite fucked, but I think here that's fine. Usually you're safe if no lyrics are involved.
And then there's the ambient overworld theme. And of course, the insanely epic music that plays at the very beginning of the game.
This might be worth playing alone for the soundtrack. I'm convinced. I think this will be one I'm definitely. I might touch. Pause. And Yuzu also looks very convincing. That's all I'm gonna say.
And a personal favorite of mine, the calming guitar music that plays at the end of every day.
Yeah, the music in this game is good. The music in this game is really good, for sure.
They even seem to have taken inspiration from Nocturne by including a song with barely intelligible English lyrics.
I like that when soundtrack adds just like barely intelligible lyrics, or just like straight up just like the usual Latin. I like that. Well, you look cool. Thank you. Thank you. I did a few changes. You pet kitty. That is still better than SMT Mara. Don't Google that. Don't Google that.
The soundtrack for this game was composed by the late Takami Asano, and this is the only Megaten game he ever composed the music.
Bro was cooking for real. Bro was definitely cooking. 100%. Bro out here was... Bro knows his work. Definitely.
Music for. I actually did a bit of research and found out that he didn't compose music for that many video games, but he did play in a rock band called Go Daigo, and it's been going since 1975. That's pretty cool. But getting back on topic, there's also the art, which is probably the most controversial aspect of this game. The art for this game is done by Suzuhito Yasuda, who is most famous for his work on the light novels Durarara and Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up...
I know what this man is doing. I know what you are.
Girls in a Dungeon, which actually...
Like I said, I know what you are. I mean, those are two convincing arguments, are they not?
Explains a lot. Well, despite the ridiculousness of some of the designs, I actually do really like the artwork he did here. The characters' faces, the haircuts, their clothing, and their expressions, it's all really cool, and their portraits do a great job of conveying the characters' emotions. Even though I do completely understand why the art may not be everyone's cup of tea. Another controversial aspect of this game, more specifically with Overclocked, is the voice acting, but to be honest, I don't have a problem with this either. As someone who played the original before playing Overclocked, I don't think I could have asked for a better English cast. If you ask me, the characters' voices fit them excellently. They all do an outstanding job of representing their characters and their emotions. It's made up of many cast members that had done work on other Megaten games before and would go on to do many fan-favorite roles, like Karen Strassman, Jameson Prince, Aaron Fitzgerald...
Karen? Sorry, my bad. Interesting. But I usually don't trust English voice acting anymore because a lot of those English voice actors, general, that are in this industry are just odd weirdos. They're just really weird. They're just weird. Straight up.
Harold, Laura Bailey, and well, you can't expect every voice cast to be perfect, but for the most part, the voice casting is great, even if there are some horrendous voice acting
Cannot be as bad as the friggin' Frau Blooms with Dignity, the English dub. Could have not picked the worst voice actor for Waguri anyways.
lines.
This cannot be.
But thankfully, these are few and far between. And then there's just those cool little details that we don't really talk much about, but add more charm to the game than you'd think. And in
You get emailed. Don't remind me of college. Ew. The Atlas Studio team is usually on point with their soundtracks for each game and the vibe they're going for. I personally found was to be the best studio out of Japan to turn-based RPGs. Well, after the amazing fallout of what seems to be Final Fantasy, yeah, that seems to be the case. Then again, I'm really scared of what they meant with wider audience. In general, I'm just scared of what that means. Because if they give in to this modern shit of, like, we're gonna censor the shit out of everything, we're gonna turn down the themes that might be controversial in the Western side of things, I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned. Right? I loved Final Fantasy. I do no longer Sin 7 remake. I'm so done with this. Well, 5 is another great studio. They made the Ni no Kuni games. I've played the MMO Ni no Kuni for mobile that has had NFT stuff in it. Really odd.
Survivor, that's the UI. Devil Survivor came out in 2009, back when smartphones were new, expensive, and not owned by most people. Devil Survivor's UI is made to resemble what you'd see in an old late 2000s cell phone, complete with the choppy animations and sound effects. And I love it. Playing this game in the 2020s really is a blast from the past. But I'm getting a little carried away now. Let's move on to the story. The premise of the story is that you and your friends arrange a meetup in Tokyo where you're given encrypted Nintendo DSs, or as they're called in the game, communication players, or
communication players, also known as a Nintendo DS. Well, it's not really a Nintendo DS now, right? Right? Because there seems to be, right, there's a D-pad, this is like the regular buttons, and then it seems we have to have a stick. So this is technically a 3DS, not a DS, technically. Have you tried the Dragon Quest VII demo? No, I have not.
comps for short. Your friend cracks the code, it summons demons, you fight the demons and form the contract, making you and your friends demon tamers. The next morning you wake up and find out that everything within the Yamanote line is locked down. Demons are running amok and wreaking havoc, and you're trapped inside, beginning your 7-day struggle for survival in the lockdown against the demons. From the beginning to the end of the game, you see the situation go from, this isn't so bad, we'll just wait it out, to, oh no, we're not getting out of here, and we're probably gonna die. And man, is it brutal. Going back to my whole point about immersion, what Devil
Another big titty woman. And a bald man. A baldy.
What Survivor really excels in is how it's able to realistically depict a situation progressively getting worse and worse, and how it affects human behavior. Not just with the NPCs, but the same thing will happen to your friends as well. And this game doesn't try to dumb it down either. It may not be full of cursing and blood and gore like a lot of games seem to think is necessary, but this game does not shy away from making you feel uncomfortable.
Lockdown, huh? POV, how people perceive the lockdown. Demons.
You will see people fight, you will see people die, and you will see just what a situation like this does to people's humanity. In fact, most of your fighting is actually not against the demons, it's mostly against other humans. Not just crooks and criminal demon tamers, you fight against commuters, demon worshippers, police, and even the military. It becomes less about trying to wait it out or find a solution, and more just them resorting to whatever may increase their chances of survival.
Damn. Literally fighting police. We're beating up law enforcement. Let's hope that we do not end up like this one woman recently.
Survival. And it gets worse the further into the game you get, especially when it becomes apparent what's going to happen at the end. Everyone in the lockdown has a different idea of what should and shouldn't be done to survive. And while you're stuck in the middle of it all, struggling to stay alive, you'll meet all kinds of people and dig up and piece together information about the lockdown, like the reason for why it happened, who was behind it pulling the strings, and how it all ties into a conflict that's been raging since biblical times that you've inadvertently dragged yourself into. You also have plenty of side stories like a gangster investigating the murder of his brother, a journalist trying to uncover a deadly government conspiracy, a single father trying to take care of his sick and weak son, a bullied high school student driven mad after his friend is threatened, and many more. You even have the characters talking about how before the lockdown they thought they had nothing, but after being trapped in the lockdown with no electricity,
They have the well, there may not be a lockdown in Berlin, but there's 50,000 households without electricity. Same energy, right? Fun fact. That is happening currently.
or outside communication for a few days, began to realize just how spoiled they were. It really makes you think about how much we, as people in the modern age, over-rely on technology. There's lots of other political and social commentary brought up too, like the question of whether or not religion is ultimately a good thing, the consequences of being easily and anonymously able to spread
Are they just talking about the Tower of Babel? Hold up.
rely on technology. There's lots of other political
Yeah, do you know the story of the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament? Christianity mentioned.
and social commentary brought up too, like the question of whether or not religion is ultimately a good thing, the consequences of being easily and anonymously able to spread information through the internet, and how people like to jump to conclusions and assume the worst of a situation, which in turn makes it even worse. Oh, and let's talk some more about the characters. Some of the most relatable, well-developed characters in the franchise. These characters do more than just
Do you consider Yuzu quote-unquote well-developed? Just saying, because she looks well-developed. Christianity, Poke, Judaism, but the Old Testament is still part of Christianity, so it's still Christianity. Ha! I'm still right. It's both.
serve as your allies. These are characters with realistic personalities and realistic backstories that you can get behind. For example, there's the dynamic between the three main characters, Yu, Atsuro, and Yuzu, where you're all childhood friends who, despite having some differences, get along really well, and throughout the lockdown, by sticking together and helping each other survive, you're all able to keep your sanity and grow closer to one another, while learning more about each other and why you think the way you do. This is also true for two more of my favorite characters, Jin and Haru, who, because they both had very troubled pasts, see each other as their true family, with Jin taking the responsibility to protect his friends and family during the lockdown. And these are just a few examples. Going over every character in the game in detail would take way too long, but this is honestly one of the few works of fiction where I can say there isn't a single character that I think is bad or poorly written. Even characters that the fandom seems to unanimously hate, I just can't help but like them. I mean, heck, even the non-playable side characters are really well developed. In fact, another one of my favorite characters is the one I mentioned earlier when I was talking about side stories, and that is Yasuyuki Honda. He's a widower struggling to take care of his son to the point where he's carrying out illegal operations for companies to make ends meet. During the lockdown, his son is having surgery, and he's becoming more and more desperate for a way out because he feels that he needs to be by his son's side for it, to the point where it's driving him insane. You know, for a game that's all about magic and demons and teenage
I need to go to my son. I have to see my son. Papa in emergency state. That is what it is. Tower of Babel, Pride Jesus, so no, not that it's real, but still chronologically. But you still, if you're a Christian, need to read the Old Testament, whether you like it or not. So it's still part of it, whether you like it or not. Like I said, it's both.
saving the world. This game has a lot of real Now, with all this stuff crammed into a single 20 to 30 hour game, it may seem like an incomprehensible
Damn, Metatron mentioned. Interesting. Where's I'm not Muppet enough to play this, I guess.
mess of nonsense. But it's not. All of this lore and these little side stories tie into the main story in a way that makes sense. And while most of them aren't necessary, it's recommended that you do them because it helps you learn more about the world, and it really shows how messed up of a situation this game puts you in. And that's what makes this game's world so immersive. As you play this game, things may look bleak, they may look hopeless, but there's always that faint glimmer of hope that you keep trying to find, and that's your motivation to not give up. It all comes together at the end of the second to last day, where you're given the choice of who to side with. Will you side with God and become the Messiah? Will you become the Demon King and lead the war against God? Will you hijack the source of the demons and tell them to f*** off? Or will you try to bust out of the lockdown to save your own life? It's up to you to use the information you've learned throughout this game.
Does that mean we have 3 endings? Do we have essentially Lucifer out? Do we have a joining God, or do we have a do we have a joining God, or do we have a running away ending? Interesting.
To make a decision. All the characters you've talked to, all the information you've uncovered, it is all done in preparation for this one moment at the end where you choose a path to take. And the best thing about it is that there's no objectively best ending or true ending or any of that nonsense. Every ending has its fair share of positives and negatives. Whichever one is best is purely up to the player. And let me tell you, regardless of which ending you take, this last day is one of the most intense moments.
Another baddie, jeez.
In any video game. You know that the world is on the brink of destruction, and if you make one mistake, it's over. The amount of excitement you feel at the end of the game as you race against the countdown with all the friends you've made by your side while you accomplish everything you've been preparing for this entire game. The adrenaline rush that you get as you fight your way through the bosses, the amount of power you feel as you beat them. It is one of the most satisfying.
Interesting. That insect looks like, looks like from Mothra vs. Godzilla, the Heisei one, with essentially Mothra's sister, if you want to call her that. That's what this bug looks like.
Things ever. Not just because of the gameplay, but because you're doing it for a cause. You're fighting for the world that you care about, with characters that you care about. And now, it's finally come to an end. And if there's anything it leaves you feeling, other than satisfaction, it's the desire to experience this game more.
They blackwashed Jack Frost! He's now Black Frost! He hulking. At least not she hulking. Anyways.
Before I wrap things up, I want to briefly talk about Devil Survivor 2, because I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to doing a video about it, and I'm sure some of you are wondering what I think of it. Devil Survivor 2 was a unique take on the Megami Tensei franchise. The gameplay was pretty much identical to the first game, but it takes place in a completely different timeline, and aside from a few Easter eggs here and there, it has no connection with the original. The story is that humanity is—
The boobs also seem to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But no continuation, okay. Why is it a 2 then? Why is it always a 2?
past its expiration date, so these godlike aliens called Septentrion start invading, and it's up to the main cast to use the demon summoning program to stop it. It sounds great in concept, but in execution, not so much. For one thing, Devil Survivor 2's cast is very hit or miss, and contrary to what TikTok cosplayers will tell you, they do miss. Quite a lot, actually. There are a few characters that I love, but the majority of them are either poorly written, cliched to a painful degree, or just downright awful. And while the story does bring up a lot of interesting philosophies and has some great endings, it failed to hook me the same way the first game did, which might be because the plot doesn't really take off until halfway into the game. And even when it does, I can't help but notice that it's eerily similar to another piece of Japanese media I've seen. Of course, it's not a bad game though, the gameplay and music are great, and as I just said, the story isn't very good, but it does have a self-aware B-move.
This lady could just straight up be out of dust, brown dust too. Jeez. Yep. Another baddie. Yep. But I don't know if I will be continue to play Brown Dust 2, because apparently they're censoring the game to get it onto Steam, which I really, really hate.
Style to it as well, and some pretty hilarious dialogue to go with it. Overall, Devil Survivor 2 was a decent entry in the Megami Tensei franchise, but not a worthy successor to the masterpiece that was Devil Survivor 1, if you ask me. Devil Survivor is one of those games that just gets everything right. It excels in everything it does. It has a story and world that are interesting, with characters that you care about. It has excellent music, good artwork, with gameplay that's fun, customizable, replayable, and it's all soaked in quality of life features and other things to do. It all comes together to make what is one of the most satisfying and memorable experiences in any video game ever. It's been more than 8 years since I played this game for the first time, and I still remember everything about my first playthrough. How I struggled with the Wendigo fight, how I saved life, how bad I felt when I accidentally let die, how sympathetic.
Interesting. The street full of what? Snow. It is snow. So much snow. It's still snowing. It isn't stopping.
I was when Atsuro told me his backstory, how I dug up the government's hidden conspiracy, how I stayed up till 3 a.m. marathoning the game on the final day, and how awesome it felt when I fought the final boss with Demon of Darkness playing in the background. Every time I go back to this game, after no matter how many times I do, I just find myself getting sucked right back into it, and I can't put it down. Never before, or even after, has a game had me so invested in its world and attached to its...
That's me and Xenoblade. Same energy. That's me and Xenoblade. That's why I can just replay it over and over again, and I don't have any trouble with it. But I can just replay it over and over without getting tired.
Characters. It's almost like I feel I'm there for the short time it takes me to play it, and it just leaves me wanting more. I don't know if we'll ever be getting a Devil Survivor 3, but even if we don't, I'm glad that this game exists, and I'm glad I got to be alive during a time when this game was relevant. And, you know, even if we do get a Devil Survivor 3, it's going to be hard to live up to, let alone surpass the bar set by the first game. Devil Survivor not only got me into Megami Tensei, a franchise that has so many of my other favorite games, but it helped teach me that a video game can be more than just a fun little way to waste a few hours after school or work. They can have interesting and thought-provoking stories. They can make you reconsider your own beliefs. And they can have characters that you can connect with on a personal level. And this isn't even some high-profile, big-budget cinematic kind of game. This game was on the Nintendo DS, the same portable console with a 3-inch screen that I bought for Pokemon Diamond version and Kirby Squeak Squad. When I think
Kirby Squeak Squad. What a name.
of this game, I think of all the great experiences I've had with this franchise, all the things I've learned from it, and how it's all because I decided to buy this game on a whim for $15 after playing Persona 3. And that is why Megami Ibanroku Devil Survivor is not only my favorite
Oh, an odd man.
Megaton game, not only my favorite DS game, but my favorite game of all time.
Why does bro have a cable that's that long? Alright, that is pretty much the video. Very interesting. This might genuinely a game that I might actually have to pick up to play. This is genuinely a game that I think might be interesting. And then might as well play the sequel. The question is, do I play the DS version or apparently the 3DS version? That is the question, but this might genuinely be a game I would pick up to play. Problem is just I have too many games to play, right? I still want to play the King Kong game. It's just it's just rough. It's just rough. On how to do that. I don't know. I still want to play that King Kong game first before I play anything else, right? That would be a next game. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.